Hey everyone, this is George, and we're back, and today we're talking Aliens Aftermath. So, this book was also released a few weeks back, and because I've been so busy writing and doing other stuff, I'm getting to it now, but I definitely want to talk about this, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about more alien stuff. But I thought Aliens Aftermath was pretty cool, and there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. This book was actually made to commemorate the Aliens film's 35th anniversary, and Marvel released this one shot titled Aliens Aftermath, and it's from writer Benjamin Percy with illustrator Dave Watcher. And before we go forward, please be warned there are spoilers for the comic, so if you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and click off now, and you're more than welcome to come back later. This comic actually takes place in the year 2214, and we're following a ragtag group of anti-Weyland Yutani social media influencers. This small group is led by Cutter Vasquez, and he's actually the nephew of the beloved character from the Aliens film, Private Jeanette Vasquez. What him and his team do is they go around, they broadcast their attacks on Wayu facilities on their social media feed. Yes, social media is still a big thing in the year 2214, but it soon becomes apparent that Cutter and some of his team are really just after views, and Cutter's actually after something else entirely. So this story picks up right after the team's last successful attack on a Weyland Yutani facility. We actually see them racing back to their ship. They intentionally set the fuse and countdown, so specifically to kind of increase the suspense of their escape for their viewers. And they actually end up obtaining information that leads them to Hadley's Hope. And once there, they suit up in these radiation suits because there's so much radiation still left over from when Ripley destroyed the site, because it was the only way to be sure. Cutter says he's after answers to what happened to his aunt. We actually learn his backstory about what happened to his aunt and his parents. But we also learn a little bit later that he also has some ulterior motives. And it seems to me like he's there for monetary gain. And he's trying to retrieve an asset from one of the Weyland Yutani competitors. So while he's still trying to hurt Weyland Yutani, this also seems like something that's more for his benefit than just hurting Weyland Yutani. Of course, as they always do, things quickly spiral out of control as we learn there was a survivor from the blast at Hadley's Hope, and unfortunately, no, it wasn't Private Hudson. As much as I wanted it to be Hudson, it wasn't Hudson. It's actually this irradiated xenomorph, and it's somehow adapted to the radioactive environment, and its bodily fluids have actually mutated into something similar to liquid nitrogen. And we actually get to see when someone makes contact with its blood, their arm immediately freezes and snaps off. And after all this is happening, Weyland Yutani actually manages to patch through to Cutter and his team, and they end up persuading Cutter to extract a specimen for them. Yes, somehow there was still someone frozen in a functioning cryosleep tube that wasn't destroyed by Ripley's blast after all this time, and they're carrying a chest burster inside, and the specimen is still viable. But Cutter has to get through the irradiated alien, and the story ends with Cutter having been killed by the xenomorph, but it's unclear if he actually managed to kill the xenomorph, and the cryosleep tube actually ends up getting shattered open, and the chest burster erupts from the sleeping man's chest and ends up attacking the final member of Cutter's crew. So yes, everybody dies in this story. I gotta say, one of the things I really liked about this story is kind of the social media vlogger angle they took with the story. I thought it gave kind of a unique angle to the story, and it kind of made a lot of sense with how vlogger and guerrilla style news has become really popular in this day and age. And this story is definitely focused on Cutter, but it's at the expense of the other characters. And of the four main characters outside of Cutter, we barely get to know two others, and the fourth we actually hardly get any interaction with at all. As I was reading this, I had actually thought the link to Private Vasquez would have been more of a driving force in this story, but it wasn't really too important to the story, and kind of seeing Cutter's kind of duplicitous nature, it felt to me like he was mainly concerned with the optics for his social media followers of the story of his search for his long lost aunt, than actually genuinely seeking closure from her disappearance. There is a moment where he discovers her smart gun in the rubble, and he actually does seem to kind of mourn her for a moment, but then it quickly changes over and we see his true motivations for their trip there when he ends up revealing that he was actually there to retrieve and extract this high value asset, the guy in the cryosleep tube, for one of Weyland Yutani's competitors. The acid, of course, being the original human who was infected with a facehugger way back when on Hadley's Hope, who was then put in a cryosleep tube and has somehow remained unharmed ever since. Well, up until this story. But also when I was reading the story, I actually think the link to Vasquez could have been left out completely, because Cutter also mentions his parents died as a result of Weyland Yutani's negligence, so the story would have functioned the same without linking it to Vasquez. But I do love Private Vasquez, and I loved all the Colonial Marines in the original Aliens film, so even though I felt like this was just tacked on for the sake of the callback to the original Aliens film, I still enjoyed it. I think what stands out in this story the most, and what I actually thought was the coolest aspect of this story, is the irradiated xenomorph. At one point, Miss Yutani actually states that there is something else here that's truly unkillable. And considering as how this particular xenomorph managed to adapt itself to the irradiated environment, it actually made me wonder if she was speaking literally that this xenomorph was actually unkillable, or if she was just speaking to the incredible circumstances that this xenomorph was able to survive in. I'm trying to think how this sort of xenomorph is even possible, and I'm thinking maybe it birthed from someone who was face-hugged towards the end of the Aliens film and who was exposed to the radiation but wasn't actually incinerated in the blast, allowing for the gestating chest burster to develop qualities resistant to the radiation. If there are any biologists out there watching, I'd love to know how or why you think this xenomorph was able to develop in such a way that it was able to survive in this environment, and especially how their blood was similar to liquid nitrogen, because I thought that was really intriguing about this particular xenomorph. I'm also wondering if there's more of this particular xenomorph out there that we just didn't see in this issue. It does seem like this is the sole survivor of those xenomorphs, but who knows if we just didn't see the others. I'm also wondering what this could mean for other Marvel Aliens comic series, because we're seeing the unique alien variant in this story, and then we know there's the alpha in the main Marvel Alien series, so I'm wondering if this is Marvel planting the seeds for introducing new and unique alien types. I also like that we got a glimpse of Miss Yutani. I'm not sure if this is her first appearance in the comics, but I definitely like to see more of this character, and based on the ending of the story, to me it seemed like it's really hinting that Marvel will be returning to this story, and particularly Hadley's Hope. But now I'm wondering, why haven't they already just gone back prior to this story? Seeing as how they knew there was an asset there that they wanted, I guess the logical explanation is that they were just waiting for someone to investigate the site so they could get intel on the state of the facility and any potential threats, and now that they have confirmation of the specimen being there, they'll probably go in full force in some future story. I actually really like this story, and one of the other Aliens YouTube channels, I think it's Studio Yutani, you should definitely check them out if you love alien content. They make really great quality alien content. But they actually mentioned to me that this wasn't the first time an alien story featured the return to Hadley's Hope, and I think they said it took place in one of the Aliens novels, so I definitely want to read up on that. I really like this story, even though it did feel kind of rushed at times, but my hope is that Marvel is planning to produce more series in the Aliens universe and continuing this particular story as well. But that's it for this video. If you read the comic, what did you think? Do you think this xenomorph was unkillable, or do you think it was just a figure of speech? As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.